Gorfethid shifted in his throne. His empty left sleeve hung beside the armrest, an ever-present reminder of his hated foe, Arthur.
"So, you come to me for land, Galahad of Benwick?" he asked. "Many others have come for the same purpose," he warned, gesturing about the crowded hall, "though I dare say there is land enough for all in Dumnonia."
"I come to you, Lord King, with greetings, freely carried from King Tudric of Gwent." That caused a stir in the hall. Men at the back who had not heard Galahad's announcement asked for it to be repeated, and the murmur of conversation went on for several seconds. Keenaglas, Gorfethid's son, looked up sharply. His round face, with its long dark moustaches, looked worried, and no wonder, I thought, for Keenaglas was like Arthur, a man who craved peace. But when Arthur spurned Cynwyn, he had also destroyed Keenaglas's hopes. And now the Edling of Powys could only follow his father into a war that threatened to lay waste the southern kingdoms.
"Our enemies, it seems, are losing their hunger for battle," Gorfethid said. "Why else does Tudric send greetings?"
"King Tudric, High King, fears no man, but loves peace more," Galahad said, carefully using the title Gorfethid had bestowed on himself in anticipation of his victory. Gorfethid's body heaved, and for a second I thought he was about to vomit. Then I realized he was laughing.
"We kings only love peace," Gorfethid said at last, "when war becomes inconvenient to us. This gathering, Galahad of Benwick," he gestured at the throng of chiefs and princes, "will explain Tudric's new love of peace." He paused, gathering breath. "Till now, Galahad of Benwick, I have refused to receive Tudric's messages. Why should I receive them? Does an eagle listen to a lamb bleating for mercy? In a few days, I intend to listen to all Gwent's men bleating to me for peace. But for now, since you have come this far, you may amuse me. What does Tudric offer?"
"Peace, Lord King. Just peace." Gorfethid spat.
"You are landless, Galahad, and empty-handed. Does Tudric think peace is for the asking? Does Tudric think I have expended my kingdom's gold on an army for no cause? Does he think I'm a fool?"
"He thinks, Lord King, that bloodshed between Britons is wasted blood."
"You talk like a woman, Galahad of Benwick."
Gorfethid spoke the insult in a deliberately loud voice, so that the raftered hall echoed with jeers and laughter.
"Still,"
he went on when the laughter had subsided,
"you must take some answer to Gwent's king, so let it be this."
He paused to compose his thoughts.
"Tell Tudric that he is a lamb, sucking at Dumnonia's dry teat. Tell him my quarrel is not with him, but with Arthur. So tell Tudric that he may have his peace on these two conditions. First, that he lets my army pass through his land without hindrance, and second, that he gives me enough grain to feed 1,000 men for 10 days.
The warriors in the hall gasped, for they were generous terms, but also clever. If Tudric accepted, then he would avoid the sack of his country, and make Gorfethid's invasion of Dumnonia easier.
"Are you empowered, Galahad of Benwick," Gorfethid asked, "to accept these terms?"
"No, Lord King. Only to inquire what terms you would offer, and to ask what you intend to do with Mordred, King of Dumnonia, whom Tudric is sworn to protect." Gorfethid adopted a hurt look.
"Do I look like a man who makes war on children?" he asked,
then stood and advanced to the edge of the throne dais.
"My quarrel is with Arthur," he said,
not just to us, but to the whole hall,
"who preferred to marry a whore out of Hennis Rwyren rather than wed my daughter. Would any man leave such an insult unavenged?"
The hall roared its answer.
"Arthur is an upstart," Gorfethid shouted. "Whelped on a whore mother, and to a whore he has returned. So long as Gwent protects the whore lover, so long is Gwent our enemy. So long as Dumnonia fights for the whore lover, so long is Dumnonia our enemy. and our enemy will be the generous provider of our gold, our slaves, our food, our land, our women, and our glory. Arthur we will kill, and his whore we shall put to work in our barracks."
He waited until the cheers had died away, then stared imperiously down on Galahad.
"Tell that to Tudric, Galahad of Benwick, and after that, tell it to Arthur."
"Derval can tell it to Arthur." A voice spoke from the hall, and I turned to see Legesac. Sly Legesac, once commander of Norwenna's guard and now a traitor in Gunlius's service. He pointed to me. "That man is Arthur's sworn man, High King. I swear it on my life." The hall seethed with noise. I could hear men shouting that I was a spy, and others demanding my death. Tanabers was staring at me intently, trying to see past my long fair beard and thick moustaches. Then suddenly he recognized me and screamed, "Kill him! Kill him!" Gorfethid's guards, the only armed men in the hall, ran towards me. Gorfethid checked his spearmen with his raised hand that slowly silenced the noisy crowd.
"Are you oath-bound to the whore lover?"
the king asked me in a dangerous voice. "Derval is in my service, High King," Galahad insisted. Gorfethid pointed at me.
"He will answer," he said. "Are you oath-bound to Arthur?"
I could not lie about an oath. "Yes, Lord King," I admitted. Gorfethid stepped heavily off the platform and stretched his one arm towards a guard, though he still stared at me.
"Do you know, you dog, what we did to Arthur's last messenger?"
"You killed him, Lord King," I said.
"I sent his maggot-ridden head to your whore lover. That's what I did. Come on, hurry!"
He snapped at the nearest guard, who had not known what to put in his king's outstretched hand.
"Your sword, fool!"
Gorfethid said, and the guard hastily drew his sword and gave it hilt first to the king. "Lord King!" Galahad stepped forward, but Gorfethid whirled the blade so that it quivered just inches from Galahad's eyes.
"Be careful what you see in my hall, Galahad of Benwick," Gorfethid growled.
"I plead for Derval's life," Galahad said. "He's not here as a spy, but as an emissary of peace."
"I don't want peace!"
Gorfethid shouted at Galahad.
"Peace is not my pleasure. I want to see Arthur weeping, as my daughter once wept. Do you understand that? I want to see his tears. I want to see him pleading as she pleaded with me. I want to see him grovel. I want to see him dead, and his whore pleasuring my men. No emissary from Arthur is welcome here, and Arthur knows that. And you knew that!"
He shouted the last 4 words at me, as he turned the sword towards my face.
"Kill him! Kill him!"
Tanabers, in his raggedly embroidered robe, leapt up and down so that the bones in his hair rattled like dried beans in a pot. "Touch him, Gorfethid," said a new voice in the hall, "and your life is mine. I shall bury it in the dung-heap of Caer Ideion, and call the dogs to piss on it. I shall give your soul to the spirit children who lack playthings. I shall keep you in darkness till the last day is done, and then I shall spit on you till the next era begins. And even then, Lord King, your torments will hardly have begun." I felt the tension sweep out of me like a rush of water. Only one man would dare speak to a high king thus. It was Merlin. Merlin! Merlin, who now walked slow and tall up the hall's central aisle. Merlin, who walked past me, and with a gesture more royal than anything Gorfethid could manage, used his black staff to thrust the king's sword aside. Merlin, who now walked to Tanabers and whispered in his ear, so that the lesser druid screamed and fled from the hall. It was Merlin, who could change like no other man. He loved to pretend, to confuse and to deceive. He could be abrupt, mischievous, patient, or lordly. But this day he had chosen to appear in stark, cold majesty. There was no smile on his dark face, no hint of joy in his deep eyes, just a look of such arrogant authority that the men closest to him instinctively sank to their knees, and even King Gorfithid, who a moment before had been ready to thrust the sword into my neck, lowered the blade.
"You speak for this man, Lord Merlin?"
Gorfithid asked. "Are you deaf, Gorfithid?" Merlin snapped. "Derval Cadern shall live. He shall be your honoured guest. He shall eat of your food and drink of your wine. He shall sleep in your beds and take your slave women if he desires. Derval Cadern and Galahad of Benwick are under my protection." He turned to stare at the whole hall, daring any man to oppose him. "Derval Cadern and Galahad of Benwick are under my protection," he repeated. And this time he raised his black staff, and you could feel the warriors quake beneath its threat. "Without Derval Cadern and Galahad of Benwick," Merlin said, "there would be no knowledge of Britain. I would be dead in Benwick, and you would all be doomed to slavery under Saxon rule." He turned back to Gorfithid. "They need food. And stop staring at me, Derval," he added, without even looking at me. I had been staring at him, as much with astonishment as with relief, but I was also wondering just what Merlin was doing in this citadel of the enemy. Druids, of course, were free to travel where they liked, even in enemy territory, but his presence at Caer Seuss at such a time seemed strange and even dangerous, for though Gorfithid's men were cowed by the Druid's presence, they were also resentful of his interference, and some, safe at the hall's rear, growled that he should mind his own business. Merlin turned on them. "My business," he said in a low voice that nevertheless stopped the small protest dead, "is the care of your souls. And if I care to drown those souls in misery, then you will wish your mothers had never given birth." "Fools!" This last word was snapped loudly, and accompanied by a gesture from the staff that made the armoured men struggle down to their knees. None of the kings dared to intervene, as Merlin swept the staff to give one of the skulls hanging from a pillar a sharp crack. "You pray for victory," Merlin said. "But over what? Over your kin, and not your enemies. Your enemies are Saxons. For years we suffered under Roman rule, but at last the gods saw fit to take the Roman vermin away, and what do? We fight among ourselves, and let a new enemy take our land, rape our women, and harvest our corn. So fight your war, fools. Fight it and win, and still you shall not have victory." "But my daughter shall be avenged," Gorfithid said behind Merlin. "Your daughter, Gorfithid," Merlin said, turning, "will avenge her own hurt. You want to know her fate?" He asked the question mockingly, but answered it soberly, and in a voice that had the lilt of a prophetic utterance. "She will never be high, and she will never be low, but she will be happy. Her soul, Gorfithid, is blessed, and if you had the sense of a flea, you would be content with that." "I shall be content with Arthur's skull," Gorfithid said defiantly. "Then go and fetch it," Merlin said scornfully, then plucked me by the elbow. "Come, Derval, and enjoy your enemy's hospitality." He led us out of the hall, walking unconcernedly through the iron and leather ranks of the enemy. The warriors watched us resentfully, but there was nothing they could do to stop us leaving, nor to prevent us taking one of Gorfithid's guest chambers that Merlin had evidently been using himself. "So, Tudric wants peace, does he?" he asked us. "Yes, Lord," I answered. "Tudric would. He's a Christian,